Hey guys, it's Michael. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to a new video. Today with a wish from the community. And so we are fulfilling that wish and we are doing an equipment guide video for the new SL Pro wrist wraps. Now let's take a look at a technique on how we can wrap them around the wrist. If you really want to support the wrist for low bar squats and for dips, we need to make sure that we're actually wrapping the wrist joint. So we don't want to wrap it below the wrist, like that. Take a look at the front side. Now it's below the wrist, because then I almost have full mobility in my wrist and there's not a lot of movement restrictions. So the low bar, the bar could press again very heavily in that direction. There's very little support from the wrist wrap. So what we want is to actually cover the wrist joint like that. So you can have the first loop around the wrist wrap and the second one a bit lower, or the other way around. You go with the first one a bit lower and with the second one a bit higher, so that now, hope you can see that, the wrist is actually covered. And now you can see that my wrist mobility is highly limited and I enjoy a lot of support. And if you have one loop a bit lower and the other layer a bit higher, or vice versa, then there's also one layer that is tight on the bottom. If you have both pretty high, then let me show you how that looks. We'll now put both very high. Then you can see that there is again not a nice support, because the wrist is actually not wrapped fully, as the lower border of those wraps are winging away. So you want to have one layer below the wrist and one slightly above, so that you really have full support around the wrist joint. And if this video made you interested in getting SL Pro wrist wraps, currently we have a pretty nice promotion running, and that is that if you wanted to get a pair of SL Pro full stiff or half stiff sleeves anyway, as long as stock lasts, you will get a pair, not just one, a pair of SL Pro wrist wraps for free to your order. Just use the code. It's explained in the description again, so have fun with your King of Weighted equipment. Let's take a look at the measurements of the SL Pro wrist wraps. Our wrist wraps come in one size fits all, so we just offer one size, and they are 55 centimeters in length and 8 centimeters in width. The 8 centimeters width comes from the powerlifting bubble, because the IPF, so the International Powerlifting Federation, limits the width to 8 centimeters, and most of those rules are slowly coming over to the street lifting bubble as well, so we started to design it in a similar fashion. The length 55 is a medium length. You will also find higher lengths up to 1 meter, which is the upper border in powerlifting. So we decided to go for 55, which is roughly the middle, as that allows for almost every athlete exactly 2 or a bit more, like 2.5 layers around the wrist, in order to create a lot of stability. So you can imagine if it's even longer, you can probably not wrap it double, but thrice, and so you will gain even more support. So the length decides on how many layers of material you can add around the waist, around the wrist, and this one at 55 is a very good middle way, as it allows 2 layers for very nice stability. When we're talking about stability, the number of layers is just one part of the calculation, because the thickness, so how flexible and how thick the material is, of course also decides on how much support it has. So there are several options. You can have a very long sleeve with a bit of a thinner and less stiff material in order to gain some support, or as we did, we have a medium-sized sleeve, a medium-sized wrist wrap, and a medium stiffness. So compared to especially other calisthenics brands, which usually have very soft wrist wraps in order to allow for some more movement, as the demands are planches, freestyle calisthenics, maybe muscle ups where we actually want a bit of movement in the wrist. As street lifters, we need stiffer ones as we're pushing much more load on the lower squat and on the dips. So ours are more stiff. And as they are more stiff, they also provide more support with less layers. So that is a very good middle way that will suit 99% of the athletes perfectly. If you are a very, very strong individual that needs a lot of support, especially during the squat or during the bench press, because you're using a lot of wrist extension and you're placing a lot of stress on your wrist, then you can also get even stiffer wrist wraps from other brands. But for most individuals out there, stiffer wrist wraps will actually cause pain, because if you are pressing your wrist into that stiff material under a lot of pressure, it can become very painful. And again, this is the perfect middle way for almost all the cases. And then there's just one small USP that I want to introduce you to, that we paid attention to when we designed the wrist wraps, and that is the extra big Velcro area. Because if those wrist wraps are wearing out over the years, which happens as it's training material, the Velcro gets less and less stable. So we overpower the Velcro area by a lot. So even if it wears down over the years due to that immense area, you can see that here of Velcro, it goes over the full size and very long. So even if it wears out over the years, it still offers enough support that the wrist wraps won't go open during your lifts, because that would be dangerous.